Have you ever thought about a civilization that thrived for centuries, built incredible cities, and then just vanished, leaving behind a language we still can't read? Well, today, we're going to journey back thousands of years to unearth that lost world and explore the profound ideas that rose from ancient India, ideas that, believe it or not, continue to shape millions of lives today. So, it all really boils down to this question. What can a 4,500-year-old city, a prince who gave it all up to meditate, and a philosophy of radical nonviolence really teach us about our own world, right here, right now? Let's dive in and find out together. All right, our first stop is the Indus Valley. This was home to the sprawling Harappan civilization. And let me tell you, this was one of the world's first great urban cultures, and its story is just packed with mystery and incredible discoveries. So, what was life actually like for these people? Well, for starters, archaeologists have found so many female figurines that a lot of experts think it might have been a matriarchal society, honoring mothers and female energy. Their beliefs were deeply, deeply tied to nature. They worshipped trees, the land, and a deity we've nicknamed Pashupatinath, who was kind of like a lord of the animals. Now, what's fascinating is that they were masters of bronze. But get this, they had no idea what iron was. Their entire economy was built on the basics, farming the land and raising animals like dogs, buffaloes, and cows. But here is the biggest mystery of them all: their writing. The Harappans used this beautiful script made of pictures and symbols, but we have absolutely no idea what any of it says. To this day, it has never been deciphered. Just think about that. Their thoughts, their stories, their laws, they're all locked away, totally silent, for thousands of years. So you're probably wondering, how do we know any of this if we can't read their writing? Well, it's all thanks to the incredible detective work of archaeologists. At the site of Harappa, a guy named Dayaram Sani found these amazing, intricate seals and even a tiny little copper chariot. A year later, over at Mohenjo-Daro, they unearthed the famous dancing girl statue and this massive public structure we call the Great Bath. Then you have Lothal, which had a huge dockyard, a clear sign of a bustling sea trade. And at sites like Kalibangan, finds like a fully plowed field give us this direct window into their everyday farming life. It's like a giant puzzle. Okay, quick check-in. Remember that famous Great Bath we just mentioned, that incredible structure? It was discovered at Mohenjo-Daro, and it really gives us a sense of the scale and sophistication of their public life. Pretty amazing stuff. So, as those great brick cities of the Indus Valley slowly faded, a new kind of landscape began to be explored: the landscape of the human mind. And that brings us to our second chapter, and the story of Gautam Buddha, a man whose ideas would eventually travel across the entire globe. The story of the Buddha is really a journey of transformation. He was actually born a prince, Siddhartha Gautama, over in Lumbini, but at 29 years old, he did something radical. He embarked on what's called the Great Renunciation, or Mahabhinishkraman. He literally left behind his palace, his family, everything, in this profound search for truth. And that quest finally ended, years later, under a peepal tree in Bihar, where he attained enlightenment, or what's known as Kaivalya. So let's talk about that word, Kaivalya. It's super important. It basically translates to knowledge or wisdom, but it's more than that. In philosophies like Buddhism and Jainism, it represents the absolute peak of existence. We're talking total liberation from suffering and the whole cycle of rebirth. It really is the ultimate goal. So, what did the Buddha actually teach after he reached enlightenment? I love this analogy. Think of it like a doctor's visit for the human condition. First, he gives the diagnosis, the Four Noble Truths, which are all centered on the universal problem of suffering, or dukkha. Then he offers the prescription, the Eightfold Path, which is this really practical step-by-step guide on how to end that suffering and reach a state of peace. Now, after the Buddha passed away, it was absolutely vital to preserve his teachings. So this led to a series of great councils. And as you can see, some really powerful patrons like the emperors Ajatashatru and Ashoka sponsored these huge gatherings. Monks would come together from all over to organize and write down the Buddhist scriptures, making sure they would survive for all the generations to come. And again, let's lock in that key turning point in his life. It has a name worth remembering: Mahabhinishkraman. It signifies his great renunciation, that powerful, life-changing moment he chose to leave his princely life behind, to go search for a deeper truth. So the Buddha offered one path to liberation, but it wasn't the only one being explored in ancient India. And that brings us to our final chapter, Jainism.
This is another profound philosophy that emerged with its own unique way of, well, conquering the self.
Now, the origins of Jainism are really ancient. Rishabdev is considered the very first Tirthankara, or spiritual teacher. But the person who truly shaped the faith as we know it today was Mahavira Swami, the 24th and final Tirthankara. So he wasn't the original founder, but he's often called the real founder because he's the one who revived, organized, and laid out all of its ancient principles, making them accessible to the world. So what's at the heart of Jain philosophy? Well, it all rests on something called the Triratna, or the three jewels. That's right faith, right knowledge, and right conduct. Jains have a deep belief in the existence of the soul and in reincarnation. But here's where it gets really interesting and kind of different from a lot of other religions. They don't believe in a creator god. To achieve that right conduct, Jains follow 5 great vows. First is ahimsa, or nonviolence, which is their absolute highest principle. Then there's satya, or being truthful, asteya, not stealing, and aparigraha, or non-possession. And the 5th vow, brahmacharya, which means celibacy, that was the specific one added by Mahavir himself. And that brings us right back to Mahavira Swami's key contribution. So which of those 5 vows did he add to the list? That's right, it was brahmacharya, or celibacy. He was the one who completed the ethical framework that Jains still follow to this very day. Wow. So just think about the journey we've been on. We started in the material world, the planned cities and intricate seals of the Harappans, and we ended up in the completely intangible realm of ideas. We've seen how philosophies like Buddhism and Jainism offered these incredibly structured paths to understanding suffering and achieving liberation. These weren't just abstract thoughts. They were, and they still are, foundational pillars for millions of people. And that leaves us with one last big question. These ideas, nonviolence, mindfulness, rejecting materialism, they're thousands of years old. But which of them do you see still shaping our world today? Where do they pop up? It's definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining me on this journey through ancient India.